Good morning, Trump's family. Have a good day and God bless you. Thank you for always watching and subscribing to the channel. Alright, let's get into the news. And if you recall correctly, just a few months ago, you remember the Democrats passed that new legislation that included 87,000 new IRS agents to make sure they find, when they would go through your financial history, we have a fine-tooth comb to look for your $600 transactions. That's right, and tax you on all of those $600 transactions. Even though our major institutions within the United States, things like the Pentagon, cannot seem to locate $2.2 trillion, they failed another audit, their fifth audit in a row. They have failed. And yet we still continue to feed them taxpayer dollars. Because why? So they can continue to funnel that money elsewhere. I guarantee you could find, if we actually had actual people to go in there to actually audit this, actually people from the outside to actually audit, we could probably find the money. The money's probably funneled into somebody's Democrat coffers to ensure that more Democrats are voted in, so that way they continue to fund the money so they can continue to fund. Oh my gosh, it's just maddening of how these institutions continue to get away with it. And if you were to fail, not it, you'd be in prison. You will be sent to prison, federal prison. They fell out, it is no big deal. We'll just cut them in their check for $100 trillion. Absolutely ridiculous. So let's get to take a look at this. Coming to a friend, a political insider, says Pentagon admit to KIP not account for $2 trillion. Again, I'm trying a typical Groundhog Day fashion, and Pentagon has failed yet another audit. Yet, for the most part, nobody seems to care in the media or government. When you fail year after year, it becomes the rule versus the exception for failed basic standards. The recent failure makes it a fifth year that the Defense Department has failed to meet the audit requirements set by Congress. That's right, your reader, your former War Department can't fully account for all of its assets. So how bad was it? Well, if you ask the lead money man on the five-sided building, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it's only a couple of $1 trillion worth of stuff that we can't find. It's not that bad, right? It's bad. Up to 27 agencies audited within the Department of Defense, only 7 received a passing grade. That's right, only 7. That means 20 departments that are under the Department of Defense failed their audits. They failed, they could not locate the money or assets. They have no idea where it's at. Got a pretty good feeling where it could have gone. And yet, there's no outrage by the mainstream media, no outrage by other government officials. And of course, there's no outrage in the country because nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it because they're too busy following their favorite sports ball team to even care. To put some dollars amounts to that, only 39% of the $3.5 trillion in assets are accounted for, leaving a deficit of about $2.2 trillion in assets accounted for. Do you remember what happened last time? The Pentagon was under investigation for misplace of trillions of dollars. That's right, 9/11 happened. And the whole conversation changed, and we did not even look into it. Remember, they were having hearings. They had the Donald Rumsfeld in front of Congress and they were grilling him about it. Then like the next day we had 9/11 and nobody talked about the missing trillions of dollars from the Pentagon any longer because we were launching the war on terror, launching trillions of dollars into the Middle East to go fight the baddies over there. As our country continues to fall apart, it's absolutely disgraceful what is taking place, but yet there you have it, $2.2 trillion missing from the Pentagon and nobody cares. Anyway, I care. I know you guys care. Can we make the rest of the country care? That's why I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. And some significant news, the Republican Party is broken and patriots are poised to fix it. We're gonna look at the latest example of GOP incompetence. We're actually going to see precisely how Republican leadership sabotaged the latest election. As I'm sure you all know by now, yesterday, Herschel Walker failed to unseat the ultra-leftist Raphael Warnock, who he affectionately referred to as the Warlock. The race was indeed closer than what many pundits predicted, but Warlock did, in the end, prevail by a couple of points. Many commentators are noting that in the end, Warlock's massive, and I mean massive, early voting lead was simply insurmountable. Again, we need to emphasize how close Walker came to doing precisely that, surmounting the seemingly unassailable. So that's a testament to how much he's loved and revered by Georgians, but didn't more saw the writing on the wall on Monday, Warlock had amassed a 223,000 vote lead. 660,000 Republicans voted early, but 890,000 Democrats voted early, and that's just too deep of a hole to climb out of, especially given what we saw happening in Maricopa County in Arizona on Election Day with all those ridiculous voter suppressive shenanigans. Republicans needed to put together an early vote ground game to nullify the Democrats' early vote lead, which in turn would allow the Republican turnout advantage on Election Day, which is the historic norm. Republicans tend to wait until Election Day to vote. So they often have a huge advantage in terms of turnout. That historic norm would then have catapulted Walker to a relatively easy victory. So the fundamental question, of course, is, why didn't the GOP do this? And I think we all know the answer. Here's Laura Ingraham's take. Everyone listen to this, she says. It never felt like the Senate Republicans wanted this guy in office. He was a Trump pick. They didn't like that. They probably liked him as a person, Herschel as a person. But there wasn't the intensity on the part of the Republicans as there was on the part of the Democrats. I felt it, you felt it. But we don't change anything. We have the same people in place and leadership, same people in place apparently, at the RNC. That's not changing. We just keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm pissed tonight, frankly. I'm mad for Republican voters, for Republican donors who have put so much into having some wins, and they just see kind of failure across the board. There aren't people who are working on early voting or banking ballots. There's no clear messaging. I mean, you look at what happened since the midterm elections, where you had a Senate that basically responded to those disappointing midterm losses by doing nothing other than sabotaging their own base. What is the case for voting Republican for the Senate? After these midterms? I don't think one was even attempted to be made. And yet, nothing seems to be changing. But you didn't see a lot of enthusiasm down there. Of course, the spending was complete. Okay, folks, now, there's a lot there to unpack. First, you'll notice the observation. What have the Republicans been doing since the midterms? The GOP establishment over the last 4 weeks has codified gay marriage. They've called for billions of dollars more for Ukraine. They're in the process, I kid you not, of negotiating amnesty for illegal immigrants. And they've all lined up to condemn the latest comments from Trump. Now, how could anyone think that acting completely against the values and interests of your own constituents is a winning formula? It sounds like they don't want these constituents. And as it turns out, that's exactly what we're seeing play out in real time. You're not going to want to miss this. Right now, the GOP has a massive fundraising problem. As you heard, we were outspent 3-1 in the Senate race, and in every other contested swing state Senate races. Well, that's very interesting because Elon Musk suggested the other day, Sam Bankman-Fried to actually donate more than $1 billion to the Democrats. They were literally flushed with cash, whereas the GOP has suffered. And they seem to be suffering at 2 levels. First and foremost, they're competing with President Trump's Save America PAC that refuses to support rhinos like Liz Cheney or Lisa Murkowski. And it's also President Trump's war chest for 2024. But more than that, and this is so key here, more than that, the GOP donor class despises the patriot grassroots of the party. There's a gap. There's a massive gap that's open up between the GOP donor class, which longs for the days of Jeb Bush and Mitt Romney. There's a massive gap between the donor class and the patriot grassroots, and seriously, when all of a sudden done, the donor class would prefer to have Democrats in power than to have people like Herschel Walker in power. And again, keep in mind these are Republicans, which is all another way of saying that Republicans are sabotaging their own party. We saw this play out in real time in Georgia itself. Their slimy Reiner Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan actually came out and said he refused to vote for Herschel Walker. He called him one of the nation's worst GOP candidates and gang. This was just 2 days before the election. This is the number 2 Republican in Georgia talking like this. And by the way, not a word of condemnation. Condemnation came from Mitch McConnell, and McCarthy, your McDaniel. The GOP is clearly a party at war with itself right now. And all of this, in the end, is the continued fallout from the massive disruption of the party in 2016. When Donald Trump got the Republican nomination, remember, Trump was a third-party candidate who won a major party nomination. And what that did is it completely jolted the status quo, which was all in on the Rhino-led national coalition headed by Bush and McCain and Romney. And of course, McConnell, McCarthy, and McDaniel are all hangovers of that era. But that coalition effectively died back in 2006, when Nancy Pelosi returned to power. That collusion coalition is dead. And the new coalition, the coalition that gave us over 300 electoral votes for the first time since 1988, is rooted in thoroughly America First nationalist populism grounded in the working class. So the reflexive response by the GOP leadership in its donor class has been to basically double down a line with the center-left portion of the Democrats, as we saw over the last 4 weeks, and voluntarily lose elections that involve Trump-backed candidates. Why? Because they're already in power. And they would rather lose elections while remaining in power over their party than win elections while losing power of their party. They would rather command a second-place team than get benched on a first-place team. So that's the reality of the leadership in McConnell, McCarthy, McDaniel. And what these midterms have proven is that as long as they are in leadership positions, the GOP is not going anywhere. Again, the fact that we won the House is testimony how powerful the grassroots really is. So what do? Well, in short, we're going to have to take this amazing parallel economy that's rising up all around us with a special thanks, of course, to Elon Musk, who's having an absolute blast as the facto leader of the parallel economy. We have to take the exploding dynamics of the parallel economy and apply them to our elections. Now, that's exactly what Steve Bannon's bracing strategy's been doing, where tens of thousands of patriots have volunteered as poll workers to ensure law integrity of voting stations. We, not the GOP leadership, we at grassroots levels and swing states all across the nation, we are going to have to implement something akin to the proven strategy of what's called the SoCal ballot harvesting model, which I've talked about in other videos, but the gist of it is that patriots are putting ballot drop boxes in conservative churches throughout their districts in order to maximize the conservative early voting. And that's exactly what's leading to all of these seat flips that have been going on throughout California, giving us the House. We need to do this in order to nullify the Democrats' early vote advantage, and the key here. So we have to recognize that the Republican leadership is not going to do this. We have to do this. We have to begin thinking about how our parallel economy, our parallel patriot society, offers innovative solutions to conducting elections from this point forward. If we do that, and I know we will, 2024 will indeed be the model for patriot winning elections for the foreseeable future. And I thank God that we've all been brought together. Alright folks, hopefully you enjoyed the situation update today. Please let me know in the comments. Please do everything you can to